Tell us about your mom.
Oh, here she is. I love my mom. My mom's a very good mom. My mom loves children. She had, she had 4 of them. 3 of us, she ate one of them. So you're not the only one. Anyway, that's my mom. She's a great mom. I'm 40 years old, and she still supports me and gives me money because I play the fakakta trumpet. And I've yet to get a real job. Yeah. So we're going to have a drum limit, and we're going to feature Elaine Hoffman Watts on a tune called Zets.
Josh Dolgin, Carmen and Henry.
Look at this. Holy shit.
Let me see.
I got, and that. Yeah. And that.
All right, so save
Who's
those.
that? Me. That's you?
Here's Lori. Look how beautiful she was. That's the night of her prom.
Was! Oh my God.
No, she is. That's the night of her
I was
prom.
only 17 years old.
Look at her. Look at how pretty my mother was. Look at her. That's my mother and my father.
You know, in the television now, the commercials, everybody's gathered in the kitchen eating cookies. Not in our house. Everybody was always around the piano with Daddy and Elaine.
That piano. Yeah.
Yes.
In the living room.
Or Elaine either on the practice pad, or then Daddy would say, "Wait, I'll go down and get the snare drum." Nobody ever gathered in the kitchen. We gathered around the piano.
This is true.
In 1927, my grandfather, Joseph Hoffman, wrote 2 books. Wrote no Xerox, no fax, no, with the pen and ink. One book is in B flat for saxophone, clarinet, and one book is a C, violin. Uncle Harry played violin. And those are songs that he remembered from Krush and the songs that were popular in Philadelphia if you wanted to go out and play a gig. It was the original fake book, not the one that's in Borders, believe me. And how I came about it, whatever, and I kept it for all these years. We finally, it's falling apart, so we Xeroxed everything, copied everything, and we don't touch the books now. But that's the music we play.
Philadelphia is different. Philadelphia was Philadelphia. So there's already these families in Jewish music, there's a scene already for Joseph Hoffman to come into when he shows up in 1905. It's already here, but what happens is they add on to it. It becomes a cumulative thing. It becomes this it's like the ingathering of the exiles. Somebody comes from Krush, right, and he comes with his book. And then you've got Candle. Harry Candle's already here. He's from Krakow, you know, and he's from Galicia, and he brings his book, and you got the you know, then you've got all these guys from around Kiev who come also, and then you've got Morris Fried from Belarus, and he brings his book, and the Alexander family also from Belarus, and they start Stanton Hall, which is a 4th and Jackson. This is one community. It's one community, and the musicians are basically putting together a repertoire that becomes the Philadelphia repertoire.
This piece is called Bagapolia, and it's in Grandpop's book. And there's several different tunes named. This was a town that my grandmom came from, and the Nazis wiped this little town off the map. And we're going to play it to keep it on the map.
Pesach was the day. After the Seder, my father would say, "Get the clarinet." He gave just one order, and that was it. So I would play the clarinet. My brother Jake, he played piano, and my brother John, he was a professional musician, played the drum. And we used to play, and the family had a good time. In fact, we lived in South Philadelphia. We had a porch. All the neighbors would be on the porch would watch us football. We had the fun. My father loved to dance. He was very ostentatious. He had to be the boss. And we had a good time. We would enjoy ourselves. But my father was the boss.
Grandpa Hoffman,
Yeah, I don't remember him.
he played trumpet. He was in the Russian army as a bugle boy. And when the Japanese-Russian War broke out, Grandpa didn't want to be in the war. And so he left Grandmom and whatever children
4 kids.
were there. And he got to Germany, got on a boat, a ship. There is family in Argentina that he would correspond with, Yussel. And he bought the ticket to Argentina. So he got a ticket to America.
Yeah.
They got to England, and they came on the ship. Do you have enough money to go to America? Grandpa had money, but still thinking he was going to Argentina.
South America.
Oh, he got on the wrong ship?
Yeah.
He ended up in South Philly. They didn't read and write English, and they ended up on Delaware Avenue in South Philly. Well, it wasn't just Grandpa. That's what happened.
My father was 9 years old. He would play jobs at night, and they would go for days at a time. And he told me,
Ethnic weddings.
he told me at night he would come home, his hands were frozen from holding the bass drum and the snare drum. And he'd kick the door, and in Yiddish he would call his mother, "Open the door, my hands are frozen." Even if the Tür, the Hände an verfreuen, Mama, help me.
My father wrote 3 songs. He wrote one called Eatala for me. My Jewish name is Ita. And he wrote one for my sister called Leikala. Her Jewish name is Leika. And he wrote one for my niece, Joni. It's called the Erste Einikel, first grandchild.
Ready? She's ready. 1, 2, 1, 2.
My cousin Buddy studied drums with him. And he said, your father was eccentric. He said, but what a musician. I said, no, you telling me he was eccentric? He was a brilliant musician. Very troubled guy, you know. He worked hard to make a living. That's what he, you know. And he was just great. And he didn't go to Curtis or Juilliard. He took a half a dozen lessons at the Settlement Music School when they were, you know, get these immigrants, teach them something. You know, that's what that school was for. And he started out as a piano player. And he did play for silent movies. He had a sister, Aunt Esther. She'd only died in the last 5 years or so. She played violin and piano and would never play for anybody. One of those. And Uncle Morris, great sax, clarinet. And there was another uncle, Johnny, handsome guy. He was a jazz drummer. He worked for Paul Whiteman orchestras. I'm going back. And there was another uncle, Uncle Harry, screwball, great violinist, who ran away from Peabody. You know, he was. And then there was another sister, Aunt Ida, who was a great pianist. When I started already to play, Daddy didn't want to play the klezmer business because it had a terrible connotation. What are you, klezmer musician? And this man, he played for years with Leopold Stokowski in the Philadelphia Orchestra. And 40s, 50s, after the war, he traveled with Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops. The Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo came here, and he traveled with them. I mean, this was a musician. And so this klezmer stuff. And who knew it was gonna... He would laugh at the whole thing. He would say, what do you mean? What's a joke, he would say. But he knew songs. And he played for the Jewish theater when it was the Jewish theater. on Art Street, and he knew all the stars. Molly Pecan, Paul Muni was at Jewish theater, all the composers, conductors, they all knew Jake Hoffman. And whenever they had an affair, bar mitzvah, whatever, it was the Hoffmans. And we have played, Susan and I have played wherever, and these little old ladies and little old men come up to us and say, "Did you know the Hoffmans? They were Klezmer." I said, "Jake was my father. He played my wedding for nothing."
He used to play the piano all the time, in the house on Lebanon Avenue. And he would play the same Freilachs. That's how I know them. Because I memorized them from hearing them from the time, because when my parents got married, we lived with my grandparents until I was 5. So I heard this stuff from the beginning.
Hey, that was, you know how?
Wait, that doesn't sound right.
Well, I think he's got weird, different chords than us.
Okay, and we're gonna do the Hoffman Mazel Tov 2 different kinds of ways. We're gonna do it the trad way, right?
Cool.
Okay. So, and then we'll do the vocal. Do you need the vocal, the Hoffman Mazel Tov? This one, the vocal one?
Sure, wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
I can have this one?
Yes.
Cool.
Get a chair from the kitchen.
Was only 2 years old, and Daddy was sitting at the piano, and he would always hum as he played, quietly to himself. And Elaine had the drumsticks in her hand.
Listen
Daddy,
to this story.
you know it's true. Daddy says, "E.G., give me the sticks," and he would put them in her hand the right way. The drum pad was there, and that was the beginning of Elaine.
That's how I was born. That's where I learned to play the drums. He would take me down the cellar in West Philly, Ludlow Street, and he had a drum set, because he taught down there, and his xylophones, and that's how he taught me. I sat down at the drums, and he would say, "Do this," and I'll play that. And that's how I learned to play. And I remember him saying to me, he would show me something and I didn't get it, and he would say, "I'm showing you, dummy, dummy, dummy." But I didn't learn to read music or the rudiments and all that stuff until I was 12 years old.
Elaine, she was a fine, nice little girl, and when she was growing up, and my brother taught her the drums, and then she went to Kodish, and her schooling was superb, and she was a fine, fine drummer. She could play in the symphony orchestra. That's how good she was. She very talented musician. She was an excellent Jewish drummer. She knew all the tricks of the trade.
Elaine, you know, I had no idea that her father had taught her the traditional drumming exactly, you know, as he played it, and that they'd made recordings together. you know, with him playing xylophone, her playing drums, he would show her everything to do, just like she's doing for her grandson now.
Those of us who've had the chance to work with these representatives of another era, like Elaine, lucky for us that we are fortunate enough.
Sitting down and playing with Elaine and Joe, that first time, just accordion, I remember that, just accordion, clarinet, and drums. And Elaine starts playing, and I'd never heard anybody play like that. Everything in the music, first of all, she knew everything, every little move in all the pieces Joe would play. She knew exactly how the songs went. But she wasn't playing a beat on the drums, she was playing the tunes on the drums. You know, she actually would, you know, it was different for every tune he played.
Last night, I was, when we were setting up the bandstand, and I was one musician separated from Elaine. I said, no, I want to be next to the drums. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to Elaine and I'm saying, I'm stealing that, I'm stealing that, I'm stealing that. You know, it's just like every phrase, he said, she's going to hear this on the next repeat. And I'm saying, I don't care about anyone else. We've got our own concert going on back here.
But Elaine played a style that was an older style. It really was a style that was, it was like the tone painting with the drums. You know, it was not this military, this kind of Russian military kind of beat, but she really was playing the music. And then I listened back and listened to how J.K. Hoffman played on those recordings. And that was how Elaine was playing exactly. And it was amazing. It was like a time machine. It was like, here was this person in 1995 playing a style that I don't know if anybody had played since the 20s.
50 years ago, I played the same way. Where were you? It isn't that overnight I became this marvelous drummer. I went out with boys who said, oh, you can't play the drums. I said, yes, goodbye. Couple of them. What are you, crazy? But when I started out, you know, my father was just worried I wouldn't get married and have, but I did. I got married to this wealthy man. And the first date we had, he came with me on the job to carry the timpani. And he's been carrying the drums ever since. No, now my grandchildren do it. But I always worked. Oh, from the day I got married. I did play in the New Orleans Symphony. They did ask me to come back. I didn't like that kind of work. I liked playing the shows and different stuff. You sit there for 3 movements and come in with the triangle or whatever. It wasn't my cup of tea. But I was a very, very good timpanist, and I could have made it as a timpanist in a symphony. But I was married. I had Eileen. I would have to take him to North Dakota or someplace, you know.
I had a small opera company here in the city. I would have certain people that I knew I could depend on. Of course, Elaine. Elaine was right at the top of the list.
And he was just a wonderful man to me. Also, you didn't make a lot of money. But I was the only drummer, and I had to do everything.
Once I got to know her, then I wouldn't hire anybody else. And I wouldn't let anybody else hire anyone else.
We had fun there. Not a lot of money. You'll notice this strain runs through it.
She would sit in this big fuzzy brown chair that was right next to the stereo. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That big brown chair. And she would put the opera on, and she would have the score in front of her, and she would read the score as the opera was playing, where she would, and when her timpani came in, she would like this. This is no crapping around over here. You know what I'm saying? She learned her part.
Do it that one, because your hands are going to get twisted up. I don't know how I did this, and I carpooled Hebrew school too. When I started working the theaters and things like that, my husband got disgusted washing dishes, and he bought a portable dishwasher. That's how I got my portable dishwasher.
She was always working, and she was always worried about the next job. She'd leave and she'd go, Eileen, book me a job. Whenever she'd go out to the store, go out where, book me a job, book me a job.
And
So-
they did.
And people would call on the phone, and
Yeah.
I'd say, somebody called, call him back, and she'd call me back. She'd get the job, and she'd say, Laurie, you booked me a job. It was such a big deal.
Right.
Mother, she did. She always worked. Mama Bessie cooked for us. She took care of us, and Papa took care of us when we were little. There were days, weeks when she was playing a show. We didn't see her like until Monday when they were off, and all week long we didn't.
Want you to play it?
We didn't see her. She also had a lot of students. Lots of little boys trailing up and down the basement steps into your kitchen, no privacy. And my mother would put something on the stove, go down and teach, run up, take it off the stove. She's not a good cook. The food would burn.
My mom cooked.
But we ate because our grandmother cooked for us. And people would say, get your mother to sign this. And I'd say, for school, teacher would say, get your mother to sign this. And I'd say, oh, I haven't seen my mother for 3 days. They'd go, what? You haven't seen your mother? I said, she's working. It's my father and my grandmother. So she was always working, always teaching.
Susan and Eileen, my children, say, don't you realize no girls were playing drums when you were doing it? Go no, I was the first. Didn't even dawn on me.
In those days, the men wouldn't hire a girl, and she resented it terribly. And her daughter plays fine trumpet, and it's different. But the men resented the ladies.
They didn't want to use me. I did play, wait a minute, on Sunday mornings, Town Hall. Remember Town Hall? Broad and Race was this great theater. And the B'nai Chaim used to bring in these very poor productions from New York City, the old Jews that were left over, remember? And they had a small orchestra. They hired me only because of Daddy, because I knew the music.
And it turned out that the reason that she had stayed with that style was basically that because she was a woman, she couldn't get on the scene. She just really couldn't get into the Jewish music scene. The guys just did not have any use for a woman drummer. It was a very male-dominated scene. And basically, her father would play with her. She'd play shows, and she'd play, but the Jewish, the Jewish klezmer scene was really a male thing in Philadelphia.
When she had students in the basement, which she still does, but when I lived there, I would go down and play.
What was that song you played? Satin Doll.
Satin Doll. I would go down and play the xylophone with her students. I play the xylophone, she would play the drums sometimes. Like, I've been playing with her forever.
From the get-go.
From the get-go.
Yeah.
live music in the house was Jewish. There really wasn't anything else. The fact that this is like a family thing, it means something. Like, it means something to me. You know, like, it just, I think that's one of the reasons it feels comfortable. Because she made a living at it, and all her uncles made a living at it, and her father made a living at it, and his father made a living at it, it was okay for me to make a living at it.
Well, the first thing I played actually on the drums was jazz. In between her students, when I was down there, I just sat down at the drum set between students and just started playing jazz. And then she almost fainted, because she didn't know I was doing anything until she saw it. She's like, "Who the hell is that?" "Oh, it's you. When did you know how to do that? Who's your teacher?" I'm like, "I've been sitting here for 5 years."
Well, I played trumpet for a while before, and then one day I was sitting I was in your teaching room, and she actually had this one just lying there in a case in the corner, and I picked it up and started playing it, and I liked playing it, so...
He didn't put it down.
So he switched.
Yeah, so I switched.
Susan was mean to him on the trumpet.
Well, I wasn't gonna say. Oh, you were just peachy and kind to me.
But I was never mean to any of my other students.
No, only the relatives.
I mean like I expected him to do everything perfectly, and if it wasn't perfect, I was like, "What is this? What are you doing? Why are you?" And every other kid, I had such patience, and I was encouraging, and and with him, it was just like, "No, it's wrong. You're bad. That's." I don't know. It was like I was channeling Elaine or something. It is scary.
So you found a new teacher because of this?
I found a new
No, I found a new instrument. I just picked something she didn't know how to play. I was like, okay, this will work.
Gute Nacht, gute Nacht, gute Nacht, mein Mischegas. Schlaf, mein Sorge, schlaf, mein Treiberkatz. Schlaf, Gesinterei, schau still, Gesinterei. Schlaf, mein Sorge, mein Unruhigkeit. Good night, my sad song memories. Rest, my thoughts, my tearing, cried out eyes. Rest, Gesinterheit, schau still, Gesinterheit. Schlaf, mein Sor ist mein Unruhigkeit. Ja, song has begun. L'chaim to my blessings, Yashakaya everyone. Over and again, once more each day begins anew. Good night for now, dream sweet for now.
So these people say, I knew a klezmer. Well, I said, and they're like shocked when they find out that we are direct descendants. Yes?
We took the express, the Hoffman Express train.
Wonderful.
dream sweet, for now I loy, loy, loy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Josh Dolgin, Carmen, Henry, Elaine, Jay, Rachel, Hankus. Thank you. We need our things. Give
Susan
them to Josh.
Hoffman Watts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Elaine Hoffman Watts. Make some noise for Elaine Hoffman Watts.
If everybody will come back tomorrow night, we'll finish the rest of the concert.